Before Charlemagne had an empire, his father removed a king. His name was Childeric III, last of the Merovingian kings. His dynasty had once carried sacred weight among the Franks. Long royal hair was not fashion. It was a public sign that old blood still claimed the right to rule. Then that hair was cut. Childeric was shorn like a monk and sent behind monastery walls. The man who replaced him already controlled the armies, the roads, the tribute, and the men who made commands real. What he needed was something more dangerous than force. He needed permission. This is the coup that made Charlemagne possible. The Franks did not lack a king. They had a throne, a bloodline, a ceremony, and a name old enough to make ambitious men careful. But an old name could not move grain. A throne could not summon levies. A crown could not force a border lord to answer before winter. That was the difference between looking royal and ruling. In October 741, Charles Martel died. His sons inherited the hard parts of power: armies, roads, tribute, punishments, abbots, dukes, and men who obeyed only when obedience was safer than refusal. Pepin was not yet king. He was mayor of the palace. The title sounds small now. It was not small then. The office stood close enough to the throne to touch every lever of command, yet not close enough to make its master lawful. His silence in the hall carried a thought.
The road answers my seal. The throne still answers another name.
That other name was Childeric. He did not have to be strong to make replacement dangerous. A weak king can still make a usurper look like a usurper. Because legitimacy is not only strength, it is memory, it is ceremony. It is what men can repeat in public without sounding like traitors. Pepin held working power. What he lacked was a language that could make that power survive him. If you want more history content like this, consider subscribing to Drawn to Empire. The famous emperor comes later. First, the coup has to become lawful. Childeric III was not killed in a spectacle. That matters. His removal was colder than that. He was neutralized. Haircut, body moved, name kept alive but sealed away from the center of power. No battlefield was needed. A blade near royal hair, a door closing, a wagon toward a monastery, and men acting as if the old order had been handled cleanly. This was not only punishment, it was political design. A king could be made harmless if the body remained living, the bloodline remained acknowledged, and the throne could be refilled without open vengeance. Pepin needed something more durable than victory. He needed replacement to look like order. At court, power was not only spoken in councils, it moved through marriages, rooms, household loyalties, and the children people were willing to recognize. That is where Bertrada of Laon becomes more than decoration beside Pepin's claim. Bertrada was the queen who helped make the coup look less like a commander's appetite and more like a dynasty forming in public. Her household, her children, and her discipline around the court mattered because succession is where seizure is tested. If Pepin took a crown for himself and failed to pass it cleanly, the coup remained a brilliant theft. If the crown moved to his sons, it became a new order.
A throne can hide weakness. A household cannot.
Nobles had to see more than a dangerous man with better command. They had to see continuity. Young Charles mattered before he ruled because he was evidence that Pepin's crown could outlive Pepin. Force can make men obey for a season. It cannot make obedience feel like the order of the world. That required bishops, oaths, letters, and Rome. Boniface and Zacharias did not represent the same kind of power. Boniface was reform on the road, discipline, correction, bishops, and the hard work of making the Frankish church useful to order. Zacharias was judgment from Rome. His answer did not swing a sword, but it gave Pepin a sentence men could repeat without sounding like traitors. Pepin's question moved toward Pope Zacharias. Should the man with royal blood rule, or the man with royal power? The question sounds simple only if we forget what it did. It gave Rome a way to speak about Frankish rule. It gave Pepin a way to make force sound like responsibility.
If the burden is rule, then the name must answer the burden.
The answer did not fall from heaven as a miracle. It came as a political exchange, moral language for military order, sacred sanction for Frankish protection, a crown that could be defended, inherited, and repeated. This is why letters and seals matter. The scroll is not decoration, it is permission made visible. The wax seal tells the room that the message has weight before anyone explains it. Pepin reads, and the world around him changes. Not because parchment commands armies by itself, but because men can now say the new thing aloud. The man doing the work of kingship should hold the name of king. Once that sentence could be spoken, Childeric could be removed without making Pepin merely another strong man in a violent age. The old bloodline was not erased, it was displaced. Childeric was not turned into a martyr, he was made unavailable. Pepin did not need to prove the old king was nothing, he needed to prove the old king no longer carried what kingship required. That is colder and more effective than rage. Pepin became king because command, church discipline, and dynastic presentation had moved into alignment. Anointing turned the claim into public ritual. The ceremony mattered because politics needs witnesses. A private decision can change a room. A public rite can change what a realm thinks it may obey. Bertrada understood the danger immediately.
If the crown cannot pass cleanly, it was never truly yours.
That is why the story does not end when Pepin is anointed. The crown moves from Pepin to Charles. The roads, bishops, ledgers, war habit, household pressure, and expectation of obedience move with it. Young Charles did not inherit a legend. He inherited a working order, and every order has weak joints. Charlemagne becomes easier to misunderstand if we start with him. He looks inevitable only from the far side of empire. In the moment, he was a child inside a family experiment. His father's crown had been made lawful by force, Rome, and household continuity. That gave Charles a platform. It did not give him destiny. It gave him roads that answered, bishops who could speak the language of order, and a family claim that did not have to begin every morning by apologizing for being new. Pepin's coup made empire possible because it solved the first problem: how to turn working power into lawful inheritance. After that, Charles could spend his life expanding the order instead of inventing its permission from nothing. So who made Pepin's coup lawful? The army that obeyed him, Rome that named him, Bertrada's household that made the crown inheritable, or the old Merovingian weakness that made the question possible in the first place? Leave the answer in the comments. I want the argument, not just the name. Next, we follow the dynasty from Pepin's crown into the household politics that shaped Charlemagne before he ever became emperor.